I've chosen a story to read this evening. It's a bit of its time, but as I was reading it, I thought, I'm not sure if this is the right kind of story to read this evening. But then I thought of all the people who perhaps are on their own, lighting the candles on their own. Maybe you're on Facebook or YouTube or Zoom, without Jewish neighbours. Maybe you're living in non-Jewish areas. And I lived in Golders Green for 34 years. And as I made my way home or went out in the evening during Chanukkah, there were always Chanukiot burning in the windows in order to proclaim the miracle. That's the commandment. You put your Chanukiah in the window to proclaim the miracle to the whole world. And I've moved not very far away from Golders Green, but I haven't seen one Chanukiah this year. It's my second year, I think, during Chanukkah, being in my new place. But I just don't see them burning. So whether I'm in a desert or not, I don't know. I'm sure they're there. But this story is really for all those who live or have lived in a place where there aren't many Jews around, if any at all. And I know that some of you on Zoom or YouTube do live in faraway places where there isn't necessarily a Jewish community. This is called The Extra Flame, and it's by Kurt Leviant. Harry Sampson took the Chanukkah lamp out of the cabinet and stood resolutely in the middle of the living room. "Tonight, I'm going to light the candles by the front window," he announced to his wife. He watched his wife's eyes move away from her book and up to his face. "You've always lit them in the kitchen," she said. "Not always, you remember, in New York?" "These past 4 years have not been New York." Harry paced the living room floor. "For once, I don't want to hide it. So, this is a hick town in the South. So what? The lights are supposed to be seen for many reasons. For the passing of a stranger as a reminder, for everyone to see how the Jewish spirit manifested itself over tyranny." His wife Vera understood, but this isn't a Jewish community where you might wake somebody from his lethargy and make him aware of his Jewish heritage. Here, it's not enough that we're the only Jews here. Do you want them talking too? Harry curled his fingers around the lamp. "No more hiding. This is a holiday of lights. A light in the darkness is no light at all." They looked at each other in silence, suddenly understanding the meaning of the words, feeling the loneliness of 4 years of isolation. In the small community, even the people's names were so Anglo-Saxon that you couldn't even have the pleasure of conjecture. Maybe he's a Jew? Scattered in the nearby towns were a few Jewish families, but not nearly enough to make a shul or a community center. So the Sampson home became synagogue and house of study combined, but a house of meeting it could never be. On the horizon stood the day when Harry and Vera would be able to leave town, when Harry would have a teaching job in the city. There they wouldn't be island dwellers. There they would participate once more in communal life. But as a substitute for communal prayer, Harry discovered that the dignity and gifts of the Spirit were anywhere and everywhere. Wherever the willing man roamed, desert or oasis, there they were. Their neighbors were silent, distant people, like Fire Chief Brown across the street, estranged not only from the Sampsons, but from his other neighbors as well. A silent, brooding man, looking as if a guilt rode perpetually on his shoulders. He was never close with anyone. He just did his job. Possibly it was his public job that prevented intimacy, but then again, maybe not. No one bothered to analyze it. Harry's other neighbors too were polite but distant friends, At times in his loneliness, he thought that the vague shadow of white-hooded knights still hovered about the town. Their sporadic activity in the area troubled him, and an inner fear took hold of him when he thought he saw an unfriendly look in the townspeople's eyes. And so the Sampsons' companionship was centered around the family of his college, where the teachers were always the antibiotics of intelligence against the disease of ignorance. And from these they sustained their social nourishment. It was the first night of Chanukkah. As on each holiday, their aloneness was accentuated by the starkness of no one sharing their joy. Harry carried the candle holder and placed it on the sill, facing the street. He put the first candle into position and lit it with the shamus candle. He sang the blessings, looking at his wife. Her eyes were focused on the flame, as if seeking out a mystery. Harry's hand shook as he passed the flame to the candle. The fire grew in his mind and transformed itself momentarily into a quick nightmare of hooded men and burning crosses. He waited anxiously for the next day. Business on the street as usual. He taught his classes the rudiments of chemical construction. His wife shopped in the local stores. The world remained a tiny norm. That evening he lit the second candle. Still the quiver of the flame reflected in his mind. Soon someone would inquire. He was impatient for someone to ask, why? The next day a question was asked. Fire Chief Brown stopped him on the street saying, "Excuse me, Mr. Sampson, but can you tell me where you buy those little candles? The ones you were burning in your window last night." Why, he expected him to ask, why? But Harry was ready with an answer. "You can't get them here." Harry forced a laugh. "You get them 10 miles out of in the supermarket. You know, a few Jewish families are scattered around there." Harry watched Brown's face. His lips didn't form the word, why? Then Harry would ask him, "Why did you want to know, Mr. Brown?" "Thought I would test them for fire hazard, quick burning quality, and we can't be too careful, you know." They both laughed, Harry again exploding the artificial smile into a laugh. "Yes, you can get them in the supermarket," he repeated foolishly. When he told his wife the story, she laughed and said, "Maybe he's Jewish." Harry joined in with the joke, "Maybe I'm fire chief." But underneath his tongue, the words were forming. What will he really do with them? 2 days later, he saw some men talking on the street. They were huddled together strangely. He couldn't hear what they were saying, and his sensitive mood imagined the worst. "He packs a powerful wallop," said one man, raising his fist. But then he heard, "That mantle sure is a ball player." He walked by the firehouse purposely, wanting to meet Mr. Brown, wanting to bring the situation to its inevitable conclusion. He saw him standing there, an intense look on his round face, the lips puffed out, the eyes half closed. He was about to say something. Harry signaled for his attention by lifting his head upward in a half nod. "He'll tell me about the fire hazard, and I'll have to remove the candles from the window." But Mr. Brown was silent. He just looked at Harry, made another motion as if to walk towards him, but then walked slowly back into the shaded firehouse, his hands in his pocket. The continued silence of the town hung heavily like a curtain in Harry's mind. By the 4th night, he was ready to remove the candles from the window. All he needed was an official excuse. His zeal had done nothing but set him on edge. His wife noticed it, and maybe she was right. All this would have been fine in a Jewish community, but here it was just stubbornness. His wife's thoughts were now somehow and mysteriously his own. With each lit candle, the insides of his head buzzed with vague fears. Something had to come. It was slowly building up. He knew it. He breathed it in the air of the streets. He saw it in the looks of the people's eyes. He heard it in the rumblings of daily life. As soon as he finished lighting the fourth night's candles, he resolved, "This is the last night." As if confirming his decision, the phone rang. There it is, he thought. He stood watching the candles as his wife answered the phone. The little flames leapt higher and higher and disappeared into the air, yet more flames always sprang up from the wick. Thus are people against the tyrants, he thought. He let his eyes relax, filling them with light, filling his whole being with the warmth of the light. "It's for you, Harry." His heart bounced with the leaping flames. "This is Fire Chief Brown," he heard the voice say. "Get those candles off the windows," he thought. But instead, a soft voice said, "Do those candles have to burn in the window?" Very subtle, thought Harry. "How do you mean?" Harry's voice was not his own. The cords in his throat tightened as he spoke. The sound was in a higher, odder pitch. He swallowed. Mr. Brown continued, "Is it part of the religious ceremony to do that?" "Come out with it," Harry thought, "and tell. Don't suspend me, then stab me. Tell me now." "Let me explain the significance of the candles, Mr. Brown." Harry was cut short. "Don't bother explaining, just tell me, is it better if they burn in view?" "Yes." Harry's thoughts exploded. "It is better if they are seen, if they communicate their message to the others." "Good, that's all I wanted to know." A message was communicated. "Thank you." And click, the phone was dead. Harry looked at the mouthpiece for a while and set it back. "What's the matter, Harry?" his wife asked. She stretched her hand out to him. He took her warm hand into his and felt his fingers trembling against hers. The nervousness leapt with the touch into her. "What is it? What did he say?" "You're all upset." "Don't understand," he said. "The message was communicated." "Harry," she said softly, but there was a tone of firmness in her voice. "Since you started this candle lighting in the window, you haven't been the same. You worry about every word, every sound, every flame. Either go back to the privacy of the kitchen or accept your own move." Harry knew his wife was right, but still he felt that his wife was deserting him by asking about it in the open, by verbalizing what had previously been unsaid. Gloomily, he looked at the candles and at the street below, scanning the houses across the street mechanically. His mind was playing tricks again. 2 of his 4 candles had gone out already. In the window opposite his, symbolically enough in Mr. Brown's window, the reflection of his Chanukkah lights were shining. He looked at their reflection. He called his wife. "Come quickly, I'm having a vision." Vera came running, afraid something was wrong with him. Look, across the street in Mr. Brown's window." She held her breath. They couldn't believe it. A living reflection. Strangely, a 3rd candle appeared to be shining in Mr. Brown's window, while the only 2 remained in Harry's window. "He's burning Hanukkah lights," Harry shouted, patting his wife on the arm. "Vera, do you know what that means? Hanukkah lights by Mr. Brown." Across the street, the lit candle illumined Mr. Brown's shadowy, brooding features, and the flickering flames cast a glow on his face as he lit the 4th candle. "A light from the darkness," Vera whispered. "Another miracle."